Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. This is a fun one, doing a kind of the second episode in a row where we get into doing a bunch of storytelling, which is a little bit uncharacteristic of our of a lot of the big ideas of mindfulness and consciousness stuff that we normally talk about, just so you guys could get to know us a little bit better and know where we come from. So I think you're going to enjoy this episode a lot. And if you do, please engage with it on the YouTubes or rate it on your apps and all that great stuff.
Fave, share the link, bookmark it, write YouTube a handwritten letter telling them that you prefer this type of content and send the URL in it.
Write your senator. If you share it as a story and tag me in it, I'll usually share those stories. You'd be like, hey, look, people are enjoying this thing, and that helps a lot. So appreciate you guys and enjoy today's episode.
Better look sharp. This is a video podcast. Notice on the first 2 or 3 episodes, I'm like, the video of this will never be seen by anyone. And now we're kind of stepping it up. We've got our background, new outfits every episode, only here on Fox.
I want to start wearing our actual shirts that we have. Oh, it looks like, did you set up the store?
Oh, it just went up, and we just got our first order today from our friend Dr. Cole Marta.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, he's been checking it every day, I guess.
He has been?
Oh, that's well, apparently, because I sent him the old link to things when it wasn't live yet. Mm-hmm. Just to look at the mock-ups and stuff we were doing.
Yeah, we got to wear the actual shirts next episode, though. They should be here by then.
Yeah. Oh, that's so exciting. Yeah, I think the third episode, you were like wearing a blanket.
Yeah, I was just wearing a blanket on my shoulders, and I look like Handmaid's Tale, like lumberjack Handmaid's Tale, I think.
There was, you know, if we were going to edit things together, it might have looked a little weird, but it was a bold. I think a blanket looks a good look, really. I think that that's what I want. If we get like a traditional late night studio.
Oh yes.
One day I want to be in like a blanket kind of snuggie.
Yes, branded all over print snuggies with our Conan Fallon Letterman background. What city should we choose? Let's have like a very obscure city in the background. Peoria. Royersford, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, just some like kind of sad place.
No offense to those places. I know you guys are responsible for all the steel or whatever. We're busy making content over here. We got to make content. We need both. We need farmers, we need people to bend steel, and we need content. And they're equally important. And they're equally difficult, except content is a little bit harder than those things. No offense, Micro, but yeah, we're like equal work contributors. Like on an island, if there was 3 people, one person would have to grab fish from the shore. The other person would have to prepare the fish and be the doctor. And then the other person would have to like tell stories by the campfire that someone else made. Someone else makes the campfire. But we tell the stories with the attention, and we use the attention people give us to generate more energy to tell more stories. So it's the circle of life, and that's why content is important.
It would be hard to do material for you're on an island, there's just 2 other people, and a lot of your jokes are like kind of venting about them. I think I do one person shows, like, which is me just performing to one of them, and it would be like, hey, what do you think about that guy's fishing, huh? And then it would crush, and then or maybe they would like it. That's the weirdest thing, and it's not that weird, but in comedy clubs when someone walks in and they're I'm sitting in the back, and then the staff comes over with someone coming in for the show, and they're like, "Hey, someone wanted to say hi to you quick." And then they're like, "Hi, hey, I don't know who you are, but could you make fun of my friend Barbara? She works in the office and she's always hoarding all of the paper supplies."
This is for a regular gig or a corporate gig?
Yeah, like a comedy club thing.
Oh, damn.
Be like, we'll be sitting in the front there if you could give Barbara a hard time about the paper supplies. And then I look at them and I go, I don't do that. And that's what I say to them every time. And then they already don't like the show ahead of time.
Oh, see, what you should have done is played them and said like, well, okay, I'm going to get into my normal material, but pay it close attention around 15 minutes in. And then once it becomes 15 minutes in, look over to the Barbara table and like kind of give them the like, I'm about to do it look. And no one else in the audience knows, like, can detect that. But they'll be like, he's about to do the Barbara material, and then never get to the Barbara material.
Yeah, keep them wanting. And then you can always say that you forgot afterwards.
One time I forgot to bring up a comic entirely, and it was their first time at that venue, and I like kept skipping. I just skipped over one person, and they never told me I skipped them. And then afterwards they're like, oh, so I guess I'm not going up or something. And I completely forgot about them, and they thought that I was messing with them like as a practical joke, but I really just forgot.
Yeah. That's I guess when you're a young open micer, you don't know better. I remember my first open mics that I went to. It was in Dorchester, Massachusetts.
Dorchester, Massachusetts. That sounds like a real city too.
And which is I think the like highest kind of rates of crime or whatever in Massachusetts. And it's, it was a real rough neighborhood. And it was a bar called the Emerald Isle that no longer exists. And it was so I took a class on stand-up comedy at a technical college. And because I'd went to one club, and then they're like, you should take a class or something to like learn the basics of, and it was actually helpful just in terms of knowing how important sticking to your time is, or like moving the mics, just little things like that, to have a bunch of other noobs to run joke ideas by, was actually pretty beneficial. And the teacher ran an open mic at this Emerald Isle, which no longer exists because it was eventually shut down, and should have been earlier because it should have been condemned earlier. There was the heating and air conditioning never worked, and so it was always either way too hot or way too cold in there. And then they had two bathrooms. They had a bar, and then they had like a showroom, and both sides they only one of the bathrooms on either side ever worked, and it was always like everything was kicked in, and it was. And
so the headliner has to go to the bathroom with the audience.
Yeah, and there was no audience really. No one went there. The people would go to the bar side. People wouldn't go to the showroom side. They would. If you ordered, they never cleaned their lines on the draft beers. So if you had a draft, it would just be sour. I even told the bartender, I was like, you got to clean the lines. And he's like, do what? Like, they didn't even know about that as a concept.
There's no health inspector there. I guess it's too small of a place or something.
Well, it's a kind of crooked kind of area, and it's a lot of palms getting greased all the time. So that's why it didn't get shut down earlier, was just simply because of it must have been cheaper to grease a few palms. And I got mugged at gunpoint once outside of it. It was a bad area.
Have you ever told that story?
I don't know if I have on a podcast.
Was it pretty straightforward? Because I'm wondering, like, if what goes through your head is like, should I try to be like in the movies and slap the gun out of his hand, or is that completely just not even in the realm of possibility? I'll just give him my phone.
Oh, I was outside having a cigarette with Tom Dustin, who is just he is one of the funniest people that I've ever met, but he's also just brutal. He is one of the most brutal, like very just does not care at all, hates life and says it, but and hates everything. And he's very funny about it. He's actually sort of a sweet guy, but he'd never like he does things for but he would never let on that he has a good heart. So he's a townie, a Boston townie, and so like real thick accent and everything, and real like used car salesman vibe. He did sell
used car
cars.
salesman.
Yeah. That was a little Australian.
Oh, yeah.
Actually.
That kind of just turned into Peter Griffin. Used car salesman. What? No, actually, that's Adam Carolla now. I can only do one kind of voice like that. And so this is Adam talking to Dr. Drew. And then you've got Peter. Peter's a little higher.
Actually, the one of the funniest, most offensive, probably the most offensive thing I've ever laughed at in my entire life came from Tom Dustin. And he's really, really quick-witted. One day we were in Cincinnati, and I was performing at Go Bananas, and he was at this Funny Bone in Lexington, and I drive over with my feature act, Mike something, and then he's
Kaplan.
No, shoot. I wish I could remember his name because he's funny. And then Justin McKinney, I think, was the headliner.
Blue Collar Comedy, second generation.
Yeah, and Tom was featuring for him. And so we drive to go pick Tom up, who's at a condo, and he gets in. He's like, this fucking condo is garbage. I went to iron my shirt, and someone had made a grilled cheese with the iron and it got all over my shirt. And he's like, and then he's like, and I sell these firewall. He, it wasn't even his idea. Someone else came up with it, but it's a wallet that when you open it, it like turns into a Zippo and it starts on fire or whatever. But that was his,
like Arrested Development, merch. Or no, it comes out of his sleeve. I know I've brought up Arrested Development 8 times in the last few episodes, but when he squirts the lighter, he squirts the lighter fluid, and there's no fire.
Where did the fluid come from? Yeah. I love that show so much. But it lights on fire or whatever, and then he put it out. He makes some dumb joke about it. He's a great salesman. He's selling these things like hand over fist for so much money, like $80 a pop or something like crazy for this dumb firewall. But he's complaining about that. He's like, I might as well just be like a Spencer's gift salesman. And he's like, he's going through the whole thing. Like, what am I doing with my life? And he's just, he will not stop bitching. And we get to this outdoor mall area to eat with the 4 of us. And and we're sitting there eating. And then I see come out of this candy. This story gets real dark. I see the world's saddest boy is what I call it. Was the most tragic thing I've ever seen in my life. It was this kid that had some accident must have happened to him, and he looked miserable. It was dark. It was real, and it was like holy crap. Like however this kid like survived whatever happened to him, and he's like looks up, and I see this and God, I don't even know if I should share this story.
Oh, now you got to. Now you got to share it.
So the kid doesn't even have like limbs or anything. It's like they got like burned out. It was
no
the
limbs
most
at all.
Tragic thing that I've ever seen. It was so horrific.
Quadriplegic?
Yeah, but also like burn victim or something like that, and probably something before that. Even it was the saddest existing human being I've ever seen in my entire life. I saw him and it just made me curse like any god that could possibly.
Allow this to happen.
It was so completely horrific and tragic. And I looked at Mike and I was like, "Oh my God, do you see the world's saddest boy?" And he's like, "Holy crap!" Like, whoa. And then Justin saw him and he's like, "Jesus, that's the saddest thing I've ever seen." And Tom has his back to him. And he's like, "Well, what is it? What is it?" And we're like, "No, don't turn around, don't look." And Justin, who's like this wholesome guy, he goes, "You know what, Tom?" And he doesn't know Tom very well. He's just been listening to him bitch all weekend. He's like, "You know what? Tom should see this because Tom doesn't even realize how good he has it, and he needs to see something like this." Like, "You don't know, Tom." and so Tom turns, looks, sees the saddest human being I've ever seen in my entire life, promptly turns back around, just expressionless, just completely unfazed by this, and he just goes, "I think that's the kid that cleaned my condo." Like, Jesus, dude. My God.
Now that's having it. That's having the quickness.
Oh my God. That's like, remember when we were talking in last episode about when you don't agree with someone, but damn, it makes you laugh anyway, like structurally it's sound, and it's like, well, you can't argue that that's funny.
Yeah,
like,
someone was saying
with that.
Some comic was saying their favorite laugh was the one where like you laugh and then all of a sudden have to cover your mouth, and people that involuntarily laugh and then realize their head catches up slower than their gut. So the gut wants to laugh at it, and then the head is like, "Don't laugh at that." Also, the heart is like, "I'm with the head too," or maybe the head is saying, "I'm with the heart." Who cares who's leading there? But basically, the gut is like, "You nerds are stupid." That was hilarious. Yeah.
So I'm outside this Emerald Isle with Tom Dustin, who just has this disposition, and we're having a cigarette. And we're both pretty drunk. I was a huge drinker. I'm in my 20s at the time. I think I was like 26 at this time, 25, 26. And Tom just turned it's his 30th birthday. We're outside. He's miserable about it because he's always miserable about everything. And he's miserable. He just turned 30 and he's bitching about it in hilarious ways. But he's the most miserable person ever, and very funny. And these guys start walking by, and the Emerald Isle has like 2 entrances, but one's always locked. And they just walked past us. And they go into like where the other entrance is, but I know that that's locked. And so I was like, why are they going in there? It's like this little entryway. I just barely noticed. I was like, oh, they're probably just like smoking a bowl in there or something like that. And what they were actually doing in hindsight was plotting like, oh, should we get them? And then they come back out and they grab Tom, who's much smaller than me, and they have a gun to his chest, and then they say, "Give me your money, give me your wallet." And Tom goes, "I only got $12, and fuck you, you're not getting it." And it was so ridiculous that I thought it was a joke. Like, I thought he knew these people and was goofing around. So I didn't even take it. It didn't even register. It happened so quickly. And then someone like hits Tom. And I was like, oh shit. And then so there was one really, and this was all caught on camera afterwards, because I didn't even actually remember doing
Security
this until
camera?
yeah. I didn't remember doing this until they showed me the footage afterwards. But there's two, they're all like 16, but two of them were like pretty small, and the guy with the gun was really small. And then there was one guy that was, I'm 6'3.5". He was way taller than me and really big. And I just crow hopped and just clocked the biggest guy as hard as I could. And he just fell into the street. And then I grabbed Tom and threw him inside, because there was a bouncer there. And I was like, get the fuck out of here, to the guys. And then they went to take off, because they had like a getaway car or whatever pull up right then. And one of them reached for my wallet, which I would have just gave them my wallet. It just all happened really quick.
Oh, yeah.
And ripped the whole back leg of my pants
Damn.
off. Like one whole leg of my pants just completely came off. And then they didn't get my wallet anyway. And then they just took off, got in a car. I got the license plate. And then it was the strangest thing. They got the guys, they pulled the car over, but what they decided to do was pull over another so these were like three black kids. And
you just lost me.
What they decided to do was pull over another set. Like, when the judge heard this story later, or whatever it wasn't a judge.
You're saying they pulled over 3 different black kids?
They pulled over another car full of black kids and then had all of them line up on the street, and then put us in a car and drove us past a makeshift lineup to see if we could identify them. And
that's
like
not legal. Not that the cops are
nothing
legal.
Nothing about it was correct. and I could identify the one huge guy, because he was like near 7 foot tall or something, and everyone else wasn't. So I was like, well, that guy. And I don't know the other. They were wearing hoods and stuff like that. And you know, it all happened so fast. And then they're like, well, then we got to let him go. Like, we'll let him go, because I guess they didn't find the gun in their car or whatever. They had ditched it in the meantime. And I was like, well, why don't you watch the security cam footage? And then it took them like ages to like get the footage, because it was some rinky-dink thing. It was a whole thing. And then it never went anywhere. And then like 9 months later, we got a call, because like one of them had gotten in some more trouble, and then they're basically just trying to get him for some other things, and saw that it was under investigation for this open case that was never done. And then there was a whole, I don't know, I had to like tell the story in front of I forget what it was called. So
did they get your wallet when they tore off the leg thing? Oh, so you weren't successfully mugged at gunpoint. You were just gunpoint.
Attempted mugged at gunpoint.
Attempted mug, but man, good on both of you. I mean, risky behavior, and I know you were saying you were drinking and stuff, but the fact that you have it in you that in that quick of a scenario, you don't piss your pants, you clock the tallest guy there, you shove your friend out of the way Mandalorian shoves the baby Yoda out of the way of the mudhorn really quick, and then just like takes the punishment of whatever happens. But the first thing he does is just shoo away the baby Yoda and then defends it. Do you think about how like my death could very well be at the hands of some random punk kid that is looking for like a few bucks to eat, and they're not even born yet. Like, I might die at age 53 because I'm mugged by some 16-year-old that gets born a little bit later.
16-year-old boys are dangerous.
Mhm.
They're just dangerous humans.
Yeah, they're warlike.
Yeah, I was a dangerous 16-year-old boy. I can't believe I never went to jail.
I think you've got some
and
good white privilege stories of like driving in drunk or something to a police taped off police thing, and they're like, "Sir, you're going to have to leave here within the next 24 hours, or I will have to write you a warning." And then they give you a lollipop. That should last you at least 12 of the hours that you got here.
Yeah, that was it was my first time headlining.
Yeah.
And I was really drunk, and I left afterwards to drive back to Boston, and it was in 2006, and I got in the car, and I was in Portland, Maine, and it was cobblestone roads, and I like that we were going to make this episode the Ramin episode, and then I'm like, no, let's do this other thing instead, and then the next one to be, and now this is Shane's storytelling.
Oh, but it's so good.
And so, yeah, this Portland cobblestone road. I was with Dave McDonough, super funny comedian. I'm not sure if he's still does, but man, super funny guy. I should reach out to him. He's one of my favorite humans.
This is the one period or this last year was a time where before, if you said, "Oh, I wonder if they still do comedy," it was seen as like, "Oh, they gave up." But now, if it's like, "I wonder if they still do comedy," then it's good for people to have not done comedy.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I wonder if they still don't do comedy like they should.
Yeah, exactly. And he was with me, and I'm driving, and I see. I think he wasn't paying attention, but they have narrow cobblestone roads, and I'm driving, and I always assumed that I was like just fine, and I take a turn, and there's a car parked diagonally with its lights on, and so I was like, well, that's a weird way to pull someone over. I thought they had someone else pulled over, and I just couldn't see the car, and so then I went around that diagonally parked police car, and then right away there's another diagonally parked police car, and I'm like, wow, I guess they just like pulled over two people. Interesting, busy night. And so I like went around that, I like weaved in between them, and I'm going very slow, and then a cop on the street is just like, hey, what the fuck? And I was like, I think he even like banged on my window or something, but I rolled the window down. I'm like, can I help you, officer? He was like, yeah, do you realize that you just drove onto a crime scene? And what had happened was there was a shooting there. Someone had just been murdered, and they set up a police barricade to stop traffic. And I was too drunk to realize it was a barricade, so I slowly maneuvered my way in through this barricade, and then and they weren't happy about it, but they did get me out of the car. And then they started giving me the eye test and stuff. I think what happened? Because I don't know why they didn't give me a breathalyzer, but so
You're allowed to refuse, I think, but then they take you in.
I forget if I refused. I don't know what happened. I don't think that I refused, because I have sucked in for a while. You could still suck in on a breathalyzer
does that cheat?
You punch, yeah, you puff up your chest like you're about to, and then you suck in as you concave your chest, so it looks like you're blowing.
The old pump and suck, yeah.
But they eventually stopped. Like, one, you can put your hand out, and the cops started like putting their hand out in front, and now they put like a thing actually in the straw that will stop if you try to suck in. But there was a time when you could get away with the breathalyzer that way, and I got out of a few. And then drunk driving is the dumbest thing in the world, by the way, but I've done it. And so anyway, he had me walk this line.
Not me. And if you see anything on my record that indicates that something like that happened when I was 21, that's a different Ramin. That wasn't me. I would have never done something like that.
And they gave me the eye test, and I knew that. So they have you follow the finger, and the test is that if you're inebriated, once it gets far enough in your periphery, your eyes start twitching, and it's uncontrollable because of a muscle that's relaxed or whatever. And I knew this, and because I was not a stranger to dealing with police, and so you'd be like, yeah, follow my finger, and I just like act like really cooperative and stuff, and like, oh shucks, I do this like Midwestern innocent guy all the time.
Oh, dang old finger following, shucks, mister.
And as he got off to the periphery, I would then stop my eyes, like when it started going over, and look at him, be like, see, I told you, follow your finger, no problem. And he'd be like, no, follow my finger. And then he'd start doing it again, and I would start a little ways, and then I'd stop, be like, see, there, I'm being cooperative. And like, then he just got frustrated. And then rather than give me a breathalyzer for whatever reason, he was like, oh, you're lucky we're busy tonight. Just pull your car over. Don't drive home. Get the hell out of here. And he let me go for that. I drove drunk onto a crime scene and totally got white privileged.
There's like, I think Brian Garr has a joke about the cops picking up a keg from another party that was underage. And then on their way to the station, they just stopped by his party, and they're of drinking age at that point. And the cop just threw the keg onto their lawn and was like, "Too much paperwork," and then left. So you were too much paperwork.
Yeah. There's got to be a lot of things like that. I was oh yeah. So the Emerald Isle was where I started, and so they had a true open mic, which is anyone that signed up on the list would get to perform. That means, and you know how comics are, they're desperate for stage time, so everyone would show up, and there was never an audience there. The audience was only other comics, and the room was set up so you could like lounge by a bar area, so no one was actually watching you. Everyone was just waiting for their turn to perform. You get the open mic thing. And they had the owner of the Emerald Isle, Ed Regal, great guy, he would order pizzas for everybody at midnight. So if you stuck around till midnight, you got a slice of pizza. It was like his way of supporting the local business, but also just a way of getting comics there.
What size slice?
Longer.
New York elephant ear slice, or
not quite that big?
Oh, okay, half.
But it was just a trick to keep a bunch of alcoholics there drinking longer, and to keep like a bit of an audience there. But so it went on for ages. But because of the free pizza thing, if you performed, you got a slice of pizza. Homeless people would come in and perform because they'd get a slice of pizza for doing it. So that was where I got my comedy start.
Were any of those sets okay? Sometimes
No.
those wild people that come in off the streets to do a set and, don't really have anything prepared. Sometimes they kill it. Sometimes they just have it that night.
Yeah, once in a while there was, and I always, I was so nervous. I had a new 5 minutes every single week, and I would have one thing that would get like half of a snicker from somebody and be like, oh, that's a keeper. Like if it got a person's attention at all, like, wow. And it's probably why I was like too edgy or whatever in the beginning too, because the shock value crap, gets comics attention or whatever.
Were you that edgy, like in terms of controversial stuff, or just more
not
like
controversial, more just like filthy,
yeah,
like fisting jokes and stuff like that.
I mean, your first album is you with a blow-up doll on a swing set, right?
It has two blow-up dolls in it. It didn't age as well as like maybe I'd hoped.
Jokes to make my parents proud.
Yeah. but it was whatever. It was what it was. It was a good album. I still get a decent chunk of change from that album to this day.
Nice.
But yeah, that was my comedy origins, and so I had like 8 jokes. I had a joke each week, and then after 8 weeks there was a graduation show for this. It was at the Comedy Studio in Harvard Square, the best club in Boston, and then I did 5 minutes of those 8 like good jokes combined, and like absolutely crushed, and then I was off to the races after that. And for anyone listening, comedy is never off to the races after like on your 9th time on stage, and then you're just like getting spots all over town.
I mean, maybe Angela Johnson, but other than that, I'm having trouble thinking of it. There are like a select few that somehow skyrocket afterwards and can maintain it. Maintain is still fine. Once they maintain it, the energy. But yeah, it's a curse. I think someone said you wanna. No, that doesn't really add up either. Like you do want to. I was gonna say you want to do well really young or kind of middle aged, but I think it's more just middle age. You want to take off in your 40s slowly. Slow ascent.
I always thought as I started headlining at 27, and I knew as soon as I started headlining, I was like, I'm just not young, or I'm just not old enough to be respected yet, because I have a baby face and everything anyway. So it doesn't matter how good my jokes are. It's weird because I'm following people that are twice my age, and then I get on stage and people are like, what do I need to listen to some kid tell me about how life works or whatever, which I wasn't, I was just an absurdist back then. So it worked. And, but I always knew that I needed to be older to have enough respect for, to get, hopefully some level of something.
I remember Lucas Melendez used to say when his jokes weren't getting much response, like if he was talking about the really serious shit, the depression and what's the point of this work and like all that. And then when it's not getting as much response as he wanted, he would say, I'm too young for this.
Yeah. What was your start in comedy?
I started after I got a DWI, actually. I told the story on Duncan's podcast the first time I was on there. I think that's where I told it. I know I've told it a couple places, but the short version is...
yeah, but I haven't heard it.
So I was...
Give me the long version.
So I was drinking back then. I'm not sober now, but I so rarely drink. I don't even know when the last time I had even a glass of champagne was. I'm not averse to it. It's just like that's not my thing of choice, and I get it when people like it. And back then I did like it. So I was driving home and I ran a yellow light, which I guess turned red while I was under it. I wasn't swerving around. I wasn't being crazy. I didn't hit anyone. I didn't even think I was drunk, but I, of course, legally was, because I was so confident that when I got pulled over, I was like, what could this be about? I'm surely just getting like a speeding ticket or something. Better play it cool, have my license registration ready. They ask if I've been drinking that night. I said, well, I only had one glass of Jack Daniels and 2 beers, 2 hours ago. Like, I was very specific with what I had, thinking that would convince them, which you don't do that. If they say, have you been drinking? You say no, and you own it forever. Even if you are a bottle of alcohol and you reek and you're red and sweating, you own that. And they took me in, or they took me outside and asked to do the field sobriety test. I thought my field sobriety test, I thought I nailed that. I thought I was perfect. I didn't fall over anything. The I follow thing, I'm like, cool, time to go now. And they're like, all right. And then they read me my Miranda rights or plead the fifth, whatever thing. They placed me in the cuffs. I'm like, wait, where am I going? Why are you? They're explaining, well, we have to take you in, and they're not explaining when I get to be let go. So I'm like, well, I guess I'll do the breathalyzer when we get there, and then they'll let me go. We get to the police station. I do the breathalyzer. I breathe as hard as I can in it. I don't do the suck. I'm doing everything wrong at this point, but I'm being a very cooperative, good boy citizen because I thought that was the way out, not by being sneaky. And
Mm-hmm.
I breathed a point 0.8, or not a point 0.8. I think it's 0.08 is the legal limit. And so because I was at that legal limit of intoxication, I had to be checked in. They gave me I didn't get an orange jumpsuit. It was a beige kind of jumpsuit.
Mm.
And there in the jail, I'm chained to this one guy in there for assault, but he's a nice guy. But you get a partner that they chain you to. I'm chained
They
to this.
chained you to a person?
Yeah, for like
I've
a little
never been
bit.
chained to someone.
I was chained in the Gen Pop thing, and then when I got my own cell, so I had like 12 hours chained to someone, and then 12 hours like of my own private cell, which it was such an
Whoa.
upgrade. It's like, yeah, I'm getting my own cell, and then when you're alone in the cell, it's like, oh no, alone in a cell, and I don't know when I'm getting out. They don't tell me. They say the judge
Mhm.
will see you like from anywhere from 24 hours to 72 to a week, depending on the schedule, and you don't get updates because your rights are taken away, and that's what happens when you violate law. You don't have rights anymore.
Right.
Understandable. So I'm just kind of waiting there. I used my phone call to call my office, which I was working, and I just left a frantic voicemail like, "Hey, I'm in jail. It's DWI. Help! Help!" And I just had to leave that on the company voicemail so that the whole company would hear it. But it was the only way I could do it. It was the only number I memorized uh, that wasn't my parents, and I
Wow.
didn't want to call my parents. I wanted to keep it secret from my parents forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent a lot of time thinking about it in the jail cell, whether I wanted to tell my parents or not. And then once I got out, eventually I was like, well, I should tell them. I should be honest. Not like I'm asking for money or anything. I'm just telling them how it is. And I called my
Mm-hmm.
dad and explained it in one like kind of frantic breath. And then the first thing he says is, "You never give these guys evidence. You never give them, you never do breath tests." Or I know the specific was, "You never give these bastards evidence." So that really helped me a lot. I'm like, oh, he's so wise. I should have taken some advice from him before. But
Yeah.
then, mom was very upset about it. Like, took a while for her to talk to me about it. But um, they let me off pretty easily off the hook, especially because I was out of the house at that point and I had my own apartment. And I said, I'm getting a lawyer, all this kind of stuff. The lawyer's going to cost whatever it was, $5,000, $7,000. Payment plan, I'll give him $1,000 a month. I've got it taken care of. And
Mm-hmm.
but as a result of all that DWI stuff, I was talking with my best friend Mike Sears, and he was saying we were kind of talking about what we wanted to do with our lives because clearly this was no way to live, just getting DWIs and just being a little fuck and being like, well, what's the thing you've wanted to do but are too afraid to? And we both arrived at like, well, I've always wanted to try stand up, but where do you start? How do you do it? Like, what if there's no one here? Is there a scene? What is the scene like? Will they let us in? Is it as all the questions, and
Mm.
we do the research. We find the little crappy Cap City Comedy website and say, oh, they've got an open mic on Sunday. Okay, we'll be accountability buddies and we'll go to it. I'll drive you there since your car was taken away and your license was taken away and I can't drink or drive or anything. Actually, I think I still could drink, I just couldn't drive. So maybe I still
Mm.
did drink at that point. But we go check out a few open mics. By the third or fourth one, Sean Mooney, one of the waiters there, had noticed I was coming in and was like, "Hey, buddy, you should go up there. You should try it out." I'm like, "No, no, no. I don't. Maybe I don't know." He's like, "All right, whatever. I'm gonna sign you up. You're gonna go up last, but you're gonna go up tonight." And then forced me to go up. I'm writing the bits on the napkin. I get up there and everyone's half the audience is gone. Everyone's wasted, tired. I sit on the stool and mumble and look at the floor, and I don't think I get any real laughs, but I don't bomb because just people are tired. You're just the last kind of guy up there, and I'm mumbling, and so nothing really happened there, but kind of Brody Stevens style. The jokes wouldn't work, but then when I would address that the joke wouldn't work, that got some kind of a response. And the
Mm-hmm.
movie moment of that night, I remember because there was this trucker guy that was heckling, and eventually he had to get kicked out because he kept heckling during the set. But the last thing he said to me is, "You'll be good. You got to stick with it, but you'll be good. You got something. And I still remember that guy. I'm like, oh, you will be good, but you need to do stuff, which he was totally right. I had nothing then. My second mic was I bailed on it too soon. I like did a few bits, they bombed, and then I quickly scurried off stage after a minute and a half. And then the third time, that's when something clicked. That's when I remembered, or not when I remembered, but when I learned to just write down some bits and stick to it. Stick to the bits. If everyone tanks, just still deliver it confidently, look forward. And that was my first good set. And most of the jokes did well. Some of them I even kept, and I recorded them on an album many years later. And that was the first night people noticed me. They're like, oh shit, that was your first night? That's crazy. And this is from comics I had met other nights before, but since I sucked before, they didn't remember me. And then the first night I did well. They're like, holy shit, your first night. You did it. I'm like, yeah, first night. And then from there, kind of mediocre and then building my way up to it. But I think that's somewhat of an origin story. It was something I wanted to do for a long time, but never would have taken the chance had I not been kept in a jail cell for 24 hours. And then in that jail cell, I'm like, well, I gotta make some kind of move. I gotta do some kind of chance with life and not just do a safe garbage path.
Yeah, see, that's interesting. That's what that was those. I was just kind of writing someone about being bipolar. I was like emailing actually Robert Sapolsky, and we were like going back and forth with about a couple things. I told him like a little bit of my background with like some manic episodes and stuff, and he was talking about the like people missing the highs of it, and I'm like, yeah, like when you take medication or whatever, but I'm like, there's also just something about those lows. Like I have to stop myself from romanticizing it, but there's something about like totally just not giving a fuck anymore that can create interesting opportunities. It can make you make these like novel connections. And I don't know if there's like a survival aspect of it too, of just like, I need something to grab onto that makes you like reach for something that you otherwise might not. Cause I remember I wanted to be a comedian since I was like 9-10 years old. I was writing jokes and everything in high school and like getting ready, and I had horrible stage fright. And then I got into drinking too much, like right outside of high school. And I got my first taste of like being cool, and like got a little too into that and like going to stupid parties and stuff. And then when I was 23, it was my 23rd birthday, and I'd been working at Ashley Furniture, for which you're getting a couch from today.
Yeah.
And it had been like 3 years or something. And I was at bar called Top Shots. I believe I was with a good friend, Aaron Weisinger, and a couple other people, and it was nice and everything. But I just remember it hit me that it's been 5 years since I've been out of high school, since I've been, adulting or whatever, or trying, and I haven't done my plan was to move as soon as I was out of high school and pursue this thing. And I've been putting it off for 5 years. I kept on telling myself, oh, I'll save up more money and then I'll move or something like that. And I was like, I'm going to, and I'm miserable, and I'm like always suicidal. And I was just like, I'm going, I'm moving. I'm going to give myself 5 years to get on late night. Otherwise, I'm just going to end my life. Such a stupid plan, but it was my plan at the time.
That's the hardcore version of Jake Flores' one. I don't know if Jake even remembers this, but at a party forever ago, he was saying like, yeah, I mean, I'll give it like 5 years. And then if nothing happens after that, I mean, fuck it. But I don't think he was talking about offing himself. I think he just meant do some other thing than comedy.
Yeah, no, I was just like, that it's this or bust. Yeah. Nothing else. Nothing else will do.
We were both babies, though. I think he started maybe like 3 or 6 months before I did, but he's one of those people from my class of people. You're a little bit before me. You're from the Kumail, or you're before Kumail, T.J. Miller, and John Mulaney, right? Or you're about there.
I was about when I won
Aspen, right?
my Aspen Award in 2007. That was Mulaney was there, and he was favored to win it. He already had a lot of buzz because he was opening for like Mike Birbiglia and stuff, and he was already like a well respected like for his writing, and I think was T.J. Miller there. I think T.J. Miller might have been there as well, and
Pete Holmes too. Pete Holmes is your class.
Yeah, and so that was, and that, yeah, because then that really, I was already progressing really, really quickly, and then that skyrocketed things, and then I was doing like, after I won that award, then I had 8 TV sets in a year's time.
Damn.
And they were all different, every single one of them.
Damn.
And then I had the Comedy Central Presents, and that was in 2009, and that was the moment that I was like, I actually don't like this as much as I thought I would. And
thrill is gone. Thrill is gone. I forget how that song even goes, but the line is "Thrill is gone" by B.B. King.
But I also just had like, I kind of like felt like I made a relationship mistake, and like all these other, I just felt like I kept on, no matter how good things would go for me, I was just such a epic fuck up. And I was always into like science-ish stuff, but then I really started analyzing like, what is wrong with me? What is wrong with my brain? Why am I making these decisions? And I just got like obsessed. And I just got obsessively looking into it. I was into like physics and things like that, and a bit of evolution before that time, but that just like set it into hyperdrive of like, I gotta fix myself. Like something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
And that's when I started veering off into all the weird like science communication stuff or whatever that I do.
It was always there though. Psychedelics and science were always part of your act, and then they just kind of grew out of that after you shed the skin of the absurdist stuff. Because like you had an old bit where you didn't even want to keep a gun in the house. Like, I'm going to keep a box of grenades in the house.
Yeah. I had a lot of time travel material early on, and I even had a psychedelic, and also same thing with the very first joke I ever wrote. It was a dumb joke about masturbation, but it made it onto my first Comedy Central album. So I like kind of.
Is that a short one?
Yeah, it's just like, it doesn't suit me anymore. But 17 years ago, from a young, like very innocent looking, like, aw shucks kind of kid.
Yeah.
It was, I masturbate so much that my bed sheets are like a starched mold of my naked erect body.
Yeah, that would sound different today.
It's like, yeah.
The young 20-year-old excited, like, oh, that could be your grandson kind of comic.
There's something
like,
about that. Yeah.
The beating off material works better suited to that.
It makes it more of a benign violation.
Or or if you were really old. If you're really old, then it's like, kind of being George Carlin-y. Not that that's all he would do, but it'd be like 69. With one finger up my ass. I'm 70 now. Never been with a 10, but at once I was with 5 2s.
I was thinking about Carlin lately when I fell into the abyss of if anything is worth doing, and it's just like, even you could be arguably the greatest comic you could be like the Michael Jordan of comedy, and still, like, after you're gone, and like put out specials like every year, and after you're gone, like, people still remember. But how many people still like watch a Carlin special? Like, not that many,
no.
And it's like it just kind of dissolves over time.
We got over Prince fast. Like, Prince, we celebrate, like, that was a huge one. Bowie as well. And yeah, we like mourned for a day, and then you move on with your life. And it's occurred to me through those deaths in particular that I think the as in terms of a legacy, if you're thinking about like, oh, what is the legacy of my life after I'm gone, the best you can hope for is that the world is kind of peaceful for one day when you're dead, like where they're like remembering your content or whatever, or your vibe, and be like, oh, really? Him or her or them? They're gone? Oh, man. Like, remember that,
Yeah.
and you're sharing your favorite thing. And then if, let's say you die on Tuesday and that's celebration, Wednesday, completely different shit.
Yeah, yeah.
That's all you can hope for.
That was like what I realized was we were talking about local
Optima.
Optima the last episode, and like thinking you're ascending to the peak, and then finding like, oh, that was just a hill that I mistook for the top of everything, and maybe there's like other hills to ascend. And that's when I realized the difference between where I'm at right now and becoming one of the funniest like comedians in the world. Like I could maybe get close to it if I like really dedicate, but if it's just laughs, like it's so fleeting. Whereas if you start attaching something to it, then it's like if I read a book and I have an epiphany and I have that like everything's reframed and like, whoa, I'd never, even just like learning about local Optima or what, it doesn't need to be that dramatic, but just thinking about like, oh man, that's interesting, and it makes me see things completely different in a new, more clear way. If I can do that for somebody else, because then they can like listen to my show, and then they'll share that idea with other people, and these ideas do live on and morph and change in ways, and it's like you can kind of fight over the territory of like mimetic influence, kind of in a way, and it's a butterfly effect. But if you feel like you're doing it in a positive thing that's making the world a better place, that I don't know, that does feel pretty meaningful to me.
Oh, for sure. And if you can make it funny as well, then great, because then the more people will resonate with it. But but pure funny without the thing to tie it into, then yeah, it's kind of fleeting.
It's a little fleeting. I mean,
so much stuff that I found just regular funny, and I save it on my YouTube under funny, whether it's a short Family Guy clip, stand-up clip, sketch, something. I'll visit it in a year or two and be like, why did I think that was funny? Not that like, oh, that's inappropriate or something, but it's bland now. The surprise is over. Whatever itch it was scratching, perhaps I was holding some tension from when I'm 5 years old, and then that thing broke the tension of whatever subtle nuance of etiquette it's violating, whatever benign violation it violates.
Right.
I love that term too, like just benign violation. It sounds sexual assaulty, but not enough to go to court. It's like, come on, baby, it's a benign violation.
Yeah, for the listeners, it's this Peter McGraw theory of you have the oh my god, brain fart. What is the
Venn diagram? Yeah.
You have a Venn diagram. One side's too much of a violation, one side is too benign, and that where that overlap, that sweet spot in the middle is where things are funny, and that's why comedy is so subjective, because some things that are too much of a violation to be told in church work really well on a comedy club, and some things that work really well in a church are too benign for a comedy club. And so it's a sliding scale that's based on context and subjectivity, and it doesn't cover everything, but
so
it's really nice.
So like an old lady falling down, or no, an old lady not falling down is too far on this side of the Venn diagram. Old lady falling down and cracking her skull open, that's too serious. That's morbid.
Yeah.
Benign is old lady falls down and then her bag of urine explodes from the urine bag to us, and then she makes some sound like, whoa! And then you also hear the splash of the urine, and that's a benign violation. You could read about that example in the book. I believe it's the cover image. of the book.
Of humor code.
Of
Yeah.
humor code. No, I'm sure there's a better example than that one that I was thinking.
Yeah, I think he uses
But there's a sweet
like
spot.
a grandfather
is what it means.
a joke about a grandfather might be too benign. A joke about an erection might be too much of a violation. But a grandfather's erection, that's hilarious. And because it's so harmless.
Yeah.
And it's funny that they still have them.
The medicine these days is incredible.
How did you get into the art side of things then? Was it because you were doing the web design?
Yeah, but
stuff?
art predates stand-up comedy for me, actually, because I was my most salient memory of, I actually have something to offer art-wise, and I'm not just, because when you're a kid, you don't really have an identity. You have your identity that your parents and siblings give you and your friends, so you have whatever name you have your ethnicity, your gender. If you fall down a lot, that's your thing. Maybe you're the fast kid, maybe you're the goofy kid, you're the monkey. Some kids are the monkey. They're like exceptionally good at climbing trees and jungle gym stuff.
That was
and
me.
Oh, really? You're Mowgli? Hell
I'm the
yeah.
monkey. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. No, of course you are. Yeah,
I'm
rock
very
climbing.
gangly, and I have like a real. I don't have an. Not only do heights not make me nervous, but I'm quite fond of them. Like I'm kind of addicted to heights.
I was little and I fell down a lot and I spaced out. That was my thing. Like I would space out and then they would be like, "Yo, Rim." They called me Rim when I was like in elementary school. That was my nickname. And then I wouldn't say anything, and then they'd laugh at me for being a space cadet and always having to ask what again. Be like, "Oh, I bet he says what." And I go, "What?" And I start laughing. And my spaced outness was so bad that my parents thought I had a hearing problem because I just wasn't paying attention. I would just be in my own world all the time. And they took me to get my hearing checked, and I had better than perfect hearing. I was like picking up stuff that I shouldn't even be picking up. And they're like, "It's definitely not his hearing. He's got beyond perfect hearing. So it's some other thing." And
interesting.
And the doodle thing.
You have super ears.
Yeah, super ears. And I was always a doodler. And then one time I was doodling in my homework thing, and you have to turn in your homework for that class for whatever reason. And some of the doodles made it into the paper or the test or whatever thing I turned in. And then the teacher wrote next to it, like, "See me after class," pointing to the doodles. And this is in Canada. It's French immersion, so we're speaking French in this. And then he like brought me in, and I thought I was going to get in trouble for doodling. And then he goes, "Ce dessin ici, c'est incroyable ça." So he said, this drawing you did here, it's incredible. You made this? And I'm like, yeah, it's just whatever. It's just some stuff. And it was just one of those, the same style that I do now for like in the After You Die book, where there's a lot of things piled up on each other. Like there's a hot dog and an ice cream sundae and a tennis racket and your mom's ass and just whatever. All the thing is piled up on each other. Like that style, that was just what I naturally doodled.
That is weird. Like as you're putting like ice cream and the skateboard and everything, and then you think to yourself, "What if I put Shane's mom's ass into this?" That is such a strange thing for you.
Haven't even met her yet, but I'm sure this image will have meaning at some point, and I'm gonna need more paper. And so he said, the teacher said, "I want you to draw me a whole like full sheet paper of this style of drawing, fill it out entirely." I'm like, oh, I'd never thought to do that. Like, a complete drawing, not just the doodle. And so I worked on it all weekend, and I like made him the drawing of the full sheet. I just, in a pencil drawing of all the elements just stacked on each other, incorporated some stuff we talked about in class too, so that I could kind of be like, "Oh, see," and I incorporated the class. And then he kind of picked it up. And this teacher, by the way, he was a interesting and good teacher. He was always very serious and strict, and he would play sports with us, and he could jump over trash cans, even though he was 5'3". He could still jump over full-size trash cans. And when we played, the incorrect term for it at the time was Chinese baseball, but it's got a different name. It's got a name like kickball, but we called it Chinese baseball, even in Canada. So that's how how funny it is that growing up in I doubt you could call it that today, or Chinese fire drill or anything. But so we're playing the Chinese baseball, kickball. He would blow up the ball just by kicking it sometimes. So I gave him the pencil drawing, and he looks at it, and he's not disappointed, and he's not blown away. It's like kind of a neutral, like, this is good, but you can't see it. You can't see it from the like back of the class. Like, you have to be up close to see this. You got to do it in ink. Can you do this in ink? I'm like, interesting, ink. I'd never thought to put ink on the thing rather than pencil. I guess that makes sense. And then that was my first journey into inking something. I just got one of my dad's Pilot pens or something and was like, okay, I'm tracing over the pencil drawing with the ink and hopefully you won't make a mistake here. And eventually built that out. And then that made it to the front of his desk and like put it on the thing. So that was my first badge of approval as an artist. And then from there, I was like always drawing comics and stuff, whether it was just for my brother to make my brother laugh or like making fun of a teacher or something in the class, you give it to another friend of yours. And then in college, I started to draw for the college newspaper. Then I made a book compilation of all those strips after a while. Then I wrote the After You Die book. And then from there, it kind of just became a consistent thing, which you were staying with me when I made After You Die, or at least most of it. You were visiting that weekend. You were doing shows or something. You didn't live in Austin.
DMT.
Yeah, that was the
DMT
weekend we did DMT.
Yeah.
So I think some of the images were DMT inspired afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I had one teacher ever that was like impactful like that for me, because I was the same space cadet, but I got in trouble. No one was like worried about me. Everyone, I was always not reaching my potential or whatever.
I was
like,
that character.
I'd do really well on tests, and then I'd never do homework. I'd never pay attention or anything. And I liked math. Math was the only thing that seemed real to me. Nothing else seemed real. And I was like really, so math, if there was like I have a specific memory of being in fourth grade and them doing like speed tests with multiplying and stuff. And I was just like, okay, and like someone I wasn't trying, but someone beat me, and I was like, what? Like, someone beat me in math? Like, that never happened before. But I never paid attention, or I wouldn't do homework. And then I remember, so I was always in detention and stuff, and always really rebellious, especially when I got into middle school. And then I really deeply hated life, and like
the birth of
like
real
religion
shame
and stuff. Yeah, and I like math was the only thing I loved. I loved that it didn't matter how old you were or your political or your beliefs or anything else. You showed your work, and it worked or it didn't, and you could check with a calculator. And
objective stuff is so cool. I mean, not to knock subjective stuff, but the fact that math is like, it either works or your chip is going to compute or it won't. It's not a subjective thing like funny or music or.
Yeah, math isn't perfect, but you'd be hard pressed to find something more perfect than math. And it's incredible.
Did you ever see that
powerful
that XKCD comic where it's got a sociologist, and like the biologist is like, sociology is just applied biology, and then the chemist is like, well, biology is just applied chemistry, and then the physicist is like, yeah, chemistry is just applied physics, and then the mathematician is like a mile away. It's like, what? I couldn't hear you guys over there.
Yeah, and that's
in terms
that's
of
actually
pure science. Yeah,
and that's like they all gave birth to one another too. Math gave birth to physics gave birth to chemistry, to biology, to sociology and psychology and stuff. And yeah, it'll be interesting as computation gets better and better faster. But I remember So there was this really odd math teacher named Mr. Ball, and I think it was in 6th grade. And I had these, so I would just do math. If I had babysitters that were like 2 and 4 years older than me, and I would always, when they I would ask them to bring over their math textbooks.
Wow.
So I was like learning algebra and stuff on my own, and then I was like able to help them. And always in math classes, I'd be like sleeping or whatever, and then they'd ask me, it'd be like, Shane, wake up or whatever, and like, and I always knew the answer immediately, and then they're like, how do you know? And then I'd explain it like in a way that made more sense to other kids than the teacher sometimes. So then then they'd be like, all right, well, now go and show everyone else how you're figuring this out. And so I would like sort of tutor a little bit in class.
Not to tangent, but are you familiar with Common Core math? Have you seen that at all?
No, what's that?
It's the new way that they're
about
teaching math, and it's like apparently very clunky and not intuitive, and
I think
it's
that there's
giving
a
a lot
lot
of
of ways
trouble.
to teach math. Like I think that there's no one way that resonates with any, because I believe anyone can do it, but it's, it's one of those when the thing locks in.
Yeah.
Like what?
It's not that this is bad. I think what's bad is if you're forcing people to just do one way and they're more comfortable in another way, and if they're getting the same answer consistently, why do you have to do it the very long way? But also, what do I know? I've never taught a kid in my life.
Yeah. So Mr. Ball was he like smoked a pipe. He was this weird guy. He told weird jokes and stuff. But he's this old guy, and but I would just be working on problems and stuff that weren't assigned, and he recognized that, because I was like a troublemaker, and everyone was like, I was trouble in every other class, so people were like wondering what to do about me. And he was like, I think you should put him in an advanced math class, and he was the first person to recognize that. And then once I got into advanced math classes, that just like, it changed my confidence and everything a little bit, because I was the best in those as well. And
best in the advanced as well.
Yeah. And then it wasn't until I started smoking weed that I started not keeping up in math. Once it got to calculus and I was skipping every class, that was when I first needed to actually pay attention.
Oh no.
To learn things.
What got you into weed? Just because it's like cool and it's around back then?
I couldn't wait to smoke weed.
The adrenaline junkie, yeah.
I couldn't wait. I was just hoping to get cool enough to have someone offer me weed. And the first time I tried it, it didn't do anything, and I was disappointed. And then the second time I smoked weed, my first time getting high, get this, it was my friend Aaron Weisinger. He's like now known as like a little bit of a pothead at this time. We're 16. My friend Travis Hughesby. We drive, and what Aaron used to do was he would go to Mr. Ball's house. He would get high, and then he would talk to Mr. Ball because he thought that was a funny thing to do, because he was fond of this like quirky old guy.
At what hour of the day?
6th grade. Yeah, just like in the evening.
He'd just go over to his teacher's house. Interesting.
So, to like mess with them and stuff. And so, because he thought he was like a funny guy to mess with. And so we get to Mr. Ball's driveway. We smoke weed. The first time it didn't take. This time, smoke a joint or whatever. Then we go up to Mr. Ball's back screen door. Aaron knocks on it. Mr. Ball comes out. He's like, "Oh, hey, Aaron, how you doing?" And Aaron's like joking around with him or whatever. And I'm starting to feel a little bit of a buzz. I've never had my mind altered before, but I'm starting to feel something coming on. And Aaron always had nicknames for people and friends and stuff. And Mr. Ball goes, oh, let's see. Last time you were here, you were with, what was it? Scott? And Aaron goes, oh, Skitterscom? And Mr. Ball goes, hey, yeah, Skitterscom. And when I heard this old man say Skitterscom twice in a row, it was like the moment I was high for my first time, and I just started dying laughing. So much so we had to leave, and he's like, I think I know what you guys are up to. And we left. We went to air. I couldn't stop laughing. We had to we were trying to sneak into his house, past his parents. We couldn't get me from laughing. So hours straight of laughing, the hardest I'd ever laughed. And I was like, oh, I like this. I like weed. And then it made my humor work. My weird sense of humor that I already had was stoner humor before I was a stoner. So we just created the audience that I needed for the humor that I had. And so that's what I liked about it. And then my first time doing LSD, we were driving through these backwoods near Mr. Ball's house, and Mr. Ball was out walking his dog or something like that, and we stopped to talk to Mr. Ball again. So my first time smoking weed, getting high, and my first time on acid, I had Mr. Ball encounters. This guy that helped me gain confidence in school or whatever. So Mr. Ball is my spirit animal.
He is. He's covering both ends of the spectrum. The good boy that excels at math, and the bad boy that laughs at Skitterscum. Skitterscum is good. I mean, you can only hope to have a memory as good as being loaded at that age where your brain isn't even formed yet, and then hearing the teacher say Skitterscum. I didn't touch weed till I was in my 20s because because everyone always thought I was a stoner because of my spaced outness, and I was always accused of being a stoner, and I took pride in being like, no, I've never even tried it. And back then, there's not as much readily available information, so it was easy to believe that it kills your brain cells, it'll make you slow, it'll make you do this, you will never be a competent success person that can excel at difficult tasks. And I was very set on becoming skilled at difficult-ish tasks.
Wow, I never care. I mean, once I got it in my head that I was going to be a comedian, that's when I really stopped caring about school. I was like, why would I need any of this? Even math, I was just like, I'll do math for fun because I enjoy it, but I'm never going to use this. I do like mathematical thinking though, but
isn't it fun being right, looking, because we knew growing up I'm never gonna need to know Christopher Columbus's birthday, and now we're in our 30s 40s and be like, yes, I was right, I didn't need to know Christopher Columbus's birthday. And it
turns out he was a fuck.
Oh yeah. One of the worst, right? I mean, everyone historically is going to be a little bit of a piece of shit just because of the time they're living in, because you don't have time to care about. You can't start at the world caring about everyone. I think you can start with you care about yourself, and then you evolve to care about those near you. Then you evolve to care about not just your tribe, but neighboring tribes, and then neighboring nations. But this expectation of how come they weren't completely kumbaya at the very beginning, nope, there's going to be war and bloodshed, and that's why it's the past. Otherwise we wouldn't have been it. So basically, don't tear down the statue of Robert E. Lee. Keep it up. Or what's the bad general? Who's the Confederate one? Is it Robert E. Lee or Grant? I forget. I think it's Ulysses S. Grant. I don't know.
I'm sure there's plenty to pick apart in all of them, and some of them I'm sure were monsters. But yeah, there's like Camonte de Buffon, by the way, for example, was this well-respected naturalist, and everything that he was thinking was pretty much within the models, best models of reality that they had at the time. And it was our little in-group is superior to the out-group thing. That was just how we evolved it. And it was just before Darwinian process thinking that flipped everything on its head, and instead of like these top-down effects, it was these bottom-up emergent properties that flipped everything. But it was getting close to that at that time. They were getting really close to Darwinian thinking, and then even by and him and Jefferson fought about things, and then Clemente de Buffon was like apologizing. By the end of his life, he was admitting that he was wrong for having discriminated against this and that or whatever. So
you're never remembered for that, though.
You're not remembered for that.
Like, didn't Darwin, like, because we associate Darwin with survival of the fittest, but I've heard people say that Darwin never said that. And later in life, after he observed more animals, he's like, oh, it's not all dog eat dog. It's not all cutthroat. There is cooperation. I was wrong about my initial conclusion, but we don't remember that.
And that was, I think he pushed back on that was something that someone took from his work and used it as an excuse to justify war and that sort of thing. And Darwin immediately was like,
Edison,
no.
Edison electrocuting sheep in the streets, right?
Yeah, elephants.
Elephants in the street? Damn. You should have started at sheep.
Yeah, well,
elephants are expensive, and you got to hope that there's more than 3 people around watching. Like, crap, I just wasted this current to kill this elephant, and now 50 more people walked by. I need a new elephant to kill.
He's a real showman.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Darwin was, it's interesting because they were starting to figure out the idea of breeding, with farms and stuff at the time, and like, oh, you put these two together and you have a bigger cow or whatever. They were starting to figure that out, and Darwin started picking up on that as influential at the time.
It's so weird that the way that lifespans vary, so that we can observe generation upon generation of fruit flies. Like in a week, you can be like, this is 100 generations of fruit flies I've noticed. Like, look, I've evolved them differently through that. And it's interesting thinking of what other beings could look at us like that, like some alien that lives thousands of years and that can observe human generations.
And it's interesting when you pick up on things that then that's what I liked about math, is then the principles can be applied to lots of other things. Every time there's like a math breakthrough, there's lots of unforeseen breakthroughs that happen at the same
Rising tide
time.
lifts all boats, right?
Yeah. And because I was thinking about what drives me crazy about like sports metaphors is people are like attached to the sports aspect of it or whatever. And we all do. I make like animal metaphors and but I was thinking, like, in the last episode, your Tetris metaphor of the guy
from
realizing
Dmitry Rushkinov, which he might have had different name, but passport papers change between episode. So now, founder of Tetris name Dmitry Rushkinov.
And this like life philosophy derived from Tetris that you could apply to other things in life. Like, the moral of the story is the lesson. It's not, oh, I should play more Tetris.
Yeah.
It's always like I got a lot of lessons out of rock climbing. Like, for example, there's the hardest climb that I ever made was because I read the grade wrong on they're all graded in difficulty. And
what scale do they use? Like Black Diamond and Red Hill, or they use numbers?
It's you start off, if it's your first day climbing, it's a 5.6, and what happens after the point is everything. So 5.6 is like the easiest, then 5.7, 5.8, 5.9, and then it gets into 5.10, and it's like 5.10A, 5.10B, 5.10C, 5.10D. I don't know exactly why they did it that way. It has something to do with, I don't know. But I was climbing like so the difference between a 510A and a 511A takes like quite a while to do. And I think I was climbing along the high 11s at the time. And there was one that was like, I thought was a 510B, and it was actually a 512 something, like a grade I'd never even tried before. But I didn't know that. And so I was climbing up and I'm like, why is this so hard? This is I'm like, it can't be that hard. I have to be able to do it. And rock climbing is much of a puzzle. And so I just like kept on thinking about it, and I thought of solutions, and I kept going, and I made it to the top, and then later found out that that was the hardest climb that I'd ever done, because I had the mindset that I could do it. And this is like this interesting, like nice little life lesson that can be applied to things. The lesson is not, hey, everyone, get out there and rock climb. You need to rock climb to know how life works. The lesson is that lessons are great.
Yeah.
we should take lessons anywhere we can from all of life. And that's why, I guess, why sports metaphors sometimes drive me a little crazy when it's like so... Because it's like an easy sell when someone's like, well, you know, what I learned from UFC is like all these certain things from jujitsu. Is like, well, I think you can also learn lessons from not getting punched in the head. I think you could learn lessons from like badminton and stuff as well. I don't think it's the only way. It's just a likable way to sell things. It's like if someone was like, that idea was a real home run, and then you're like, oh, I don't think that it was. They're like, what, you don't like baseball? Like,
fine, it was a touchdown, you fucking American, even though baseball is also American.
It's like you're missing the point of the specific thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's such a silly thing to like.
That rock climbing thing made me think of I heard on that behind the scenes of Mandalorian, because, you know, they have all these different directors for it, and they've like been pretty good about the diversity of it. It's like, you know, they've got the Asian woman director, they've got the black guy director, they've got the New Zealand guy. Like it's a nice mix of people, so it's not just all white dudes and stuff as directing has been. But they gave a very difficult episode to the least experienced director, not telling them that that's the most difficult episode to direct. Like, it has the most robots and like different things you have to coordinate, and she's very new to the scene, and then she ends up doing a good job on it, and later finds out that, oh yeah, we gave you the extra hard one because everyone else would have freaked out, whereas you wouldn't have even known how difficult of a thing you were being put in. And I thought that was an interesting trial by fire rock climbing.
Oh man,
comparison.
I mean, and that happens in stand up too, where it's just like you'll see. I was not that guy when I did an open mic. When I started out, I was so shy, and I would read directly from a notebook. That's how much stage fright I had. And then when I get some, I remember this guy, Jack Herney, this really quirky felt he was a sweetheart, or is a sweetheart. But one day he was like, "Hey, you're funny. Your jokes are funny. Can you tell them without reading them?" And I was like,
he's a little newsy,
yeah.
little newspaper boy from Jersey. Hey, you got a nice joke voice. You ever thought of showing your face? I mean, the notebook paper looks nice, but I'd rather look at your face.
Because to me, everything was like, it doesn't work on paper. To me, jokes were like mathematical. And so it's just like, if it works on paper and the timing is right and it has this twist in a certain way, like that's the formula works. Like if the audience doesn't laugh, they're wrong. Like the calculations are correct here. And that's like the way that I thought of it, which actually helped me a lot in my career for a while.
Being overly methodical about it.
Yeah. I mean, I used to listen back to myself, break down how many laughs a minute I was getting, break down every single word.
I remember a club booker was talking about LPM and being like, Robin Williams, if you go back and listen to his tapes, he had over 1.2 LPM. Or no,
And
that's a terrible number. Let's say 120 LPM.
Yeah, you need like 4 laughs a minute, really. That was like a thing that was good for getting on late night, and then you don't need that for things outside of that. You don't need that for like building one man shows and doing podcasting and all the stuff that actually takes things to the next level. Now that late night's like all but dead anyway.
Oh yeah, it definitely smells funny.
Yeah.
It's not completely dead, but it's getting close. When's the last time you've even seen a late night set?
I've seen a few minutes of my dad will watch Colbert sometimes. I've seen like a few minutes of that here and there, but it's all the like in his house or whatever, and I don't. It's not the same without the audience and stuff. It's fine, but it's not the same, and I don't care that much about late. I thought the Colbert Report was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the Daily Show was incredible, and I just don't think that the traditional like Johnny Carson type thing really worked. I mean, it's what I liked about Conan was like innovative. You know, he was taking weird chances that no one else was doing. That's what I loved about Conan, and I was like fortunate enough to kind of have my pick of late night things early on. But
it reaches an evolutionary peak, and then you end up just kind of being this shark that's still just doing its normal thing in the ocean, and then the newer things are innovating. And once you've made it, unless you make the choice to get uncomfortable again, you're going to stay in that niche
exactly
and not grow.
And even if you grow, it's like you can only get so successful for so long before people are like, oh, we get it. You know, yeah, those guys, you know, people want a fresh thing to talk about around the water cooler and stuff. And
they might not even care too, which more power to them. But let's take Colbert or Conan or whoever. Maybe they're not thinking of like, how do I become hip again? They're probably like, oh, I got to make sure my kid can go to the right college. I need to be home more. I want to make sure I spend time with my wife. And the show is trudging along, but like, I'll leave it up to the new guard because they just have more energy and they're more on the pulse to being hip and relevant. These guys aren't going to be the hip relevant guys they once were.
Yeah. It's it is interesting that we just have to keep on innovating all the time. I knew when I started doing like the science stuff, I was like, this is going to be a painful transition. It's going to take a long time. I'm educating myself. It's going to take like 5 years to do that, you know, to like read enough books or whatever to like get up to speed enough to know what I'm talking about. Enough to talk fluidly about these things and not be just like open micer, shy, apprehensive again in saying things.
I wanted to ask you if, because I was talking to Catherine about this, I was bringing up that you're very good at retaining information and integrating it and building on it and stuff. And I feel like, 16-year-old you was not ready for academics, but if you felt like it, I bet you could become an academic and like have a PhD and that stuff if you cared about it. But it's all of whether you care to put the energy towards it. But if you wanted to be Professor Shane, you could become a Professor Shane.
I do. Sometimes scientists will say that they'll be like, you could do this. And I don't want to do the grant applications and stuff like that. But it's also, I mean, the behind the scenes of this show isn't like, it's not like every single thing is just a delight.
No.
You know, there's just like lots of fussing with crap that you got to do. And like, oh, we want to get better cameras. And like, it's just endless. It will never end. And then like, it'll continue to innovate. But it's pretty fucking cool that we get to do this.
Oh, yeah. We're not in an institution. That's the worst part. Or, I mean, it's also an advantage because you have more freedom and you can not work for months and still get a paycheck, but we're not in a big institution. There's
this, and we've already been at this for 90 minutes, but this is this one last thing that I wanted to share, which I thought of in the last episode. I was gonna say it with Genghis Khan, and why I was like feeling in such a low mood. Which one, my instincts were kind of right that it had something to do. So I had donated blood, and I looked it up.
And you drank right after you donated
and then I
the
drank
blood.
like shortly. Yeah, but there's iron. You're iron deficient after you give blood, and that can alter your mood. And so, but I'm just becoming more and more mindful of how much, putting good fuel in, like the cliche of wellness or whatever at exercise, how much that changes everything. And how, like, I looked at this, there was this lioness video of this lioness got bit by a rattlesnake or something.
Rattlesnake.
And was poisoned. And I didn't see the end of the video. I don't know but what happened was she was like lashing out everywhere at like invisible, as if like things were attacking it, and just like lashing and striking at things and like really, really struggling. And it's like this internal like poison thing. And it's this imagined that she's lashing out, imagining like exterior threats. And like, I think that we do that
with our mind,
just with, it's just like, I was connecting it with like alcohol, like, oh, I poison myself and then scream at the internet for it. You fool. But so much of that, we'll talk about embodied cognition and stuff one day. But I was thinking, where the Genghis Khan comes in is I was thinking about, because once I got in a dark place with like, because where I'll go when it's really dark, the worst parts are when the things that you love, you start questioning. Like, I love doing this show. I love doing Here We Are. I used to really love stand-up. When those things that you love no longer like bring you that joy, no longer motivate you or whatever. Not that this doesn't, just on an off day or whatever, when you're going, what's the point of anything? Even if it's the biggest, bestest thing the world's ever seen, who even cares? I mean, and really, I'm just iron deficient.
Mm-hmm.
But I was thinking about just the difference in having to and wanting to. And you had mentioned Genghis Khan. There's this, I think, a Chinese emperor, I should have done research beforehand, but I'm just hopefully retaining well enough from books that I read 10 years ago or something. There was this emperor who had, you could probably find him if you just looked up like most descendants ever.
He's the
like
Wilt
Genghis
Chamberlain.
Khan number one, and then there's this Chinese emperor, but he was like a prince or something, and he was basically just a sperm factory. What they do is every day, so there's like a huge harem, and every day, and these harems too, if you read about old harems, it's crazy. Like the guys would, like a king would like take a prisoner from somewhere else, castrate them, and then make that person guard their harem. Like, make a castrated person guard their harem. Now you gotta guard the women you can't sleep with.
Oh, wow.
From other
and
guys.
They comply? Because I guess they're enchained, other's it's that or death, I guess.
I guess, yeah. I guess they
and the death of their family.
More.
Yeah. We don't. It's more ruthless than even the first place your mind goes. It's like always deeper than the first place.
Yeah. And there was so anyway, there was this Chinese, I think he was Chinese emperor, who they had like a whole team of their version of scientists, whatever century this was. I think it was like I don't know how many hundreds of years ago, or I don't think it was 1,000. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But they had a team of people making sure, checking their fertility and measuring when they're going to be the most fertile, so that the most fertile women would be brought. And this guy 3 times a day. Well, in his journals, he would lament this whole like chore that he had to do of just every day. He's just like being milked for his seed, basically, just having to bang the most fertile, healthy women imaginable 3 times a day. And it was like torture for him, because they're like putting in things to like finding aphrodisiacs for him and stuff like that, you know, and he griped about it quite a bit. And but that's it. Like Genghis Khan, he did it on his own terms. You know, like his parents weren't making him do that.
Love of the
like,
game.
He was in it for the love of the game.
He doesn't even know that it makes kids. He's like, oh, that's why there's lots of kids. Oh, I thought kids were independent. I thought there was storks where women dreamed them up.
And that's the crazy trap of like when you pursue your dream, you pursue this like amazing new thing or whatever, you put together the thing that you want to do. And then once that does become the thing that you're doing for a living, which is your dream, but now you have to do that, and having to do it changes the relationship with that thing in your mind. You know?
Yeah, and you're the one forcing yourself to have to do it. I think about that with like finding your creative voice, like how when someone, whether it's in stand-up or music or illustration or whatever, you're like, I don't have my voice yet, I don't have my thing. And then once you've found it or are close to it, you're like, you're in a prison all of a sudden because, now I have to conform to what people would expect that I would generate because I've found my voice.
Yeah, prison of your own making. And it's really interesting. Well, I'm happy to be in this prison with you, my friend.
You too. Best prison in the tri-state area.
This is perfect. This was it. This is a great episode. It gave people a little background how we got to be here. Another origin story thing, and I think maybe next time we will get into the memory stuff, and this is all super helpful. So
yeah, that's the joke. We always forget to get to the memory stuff.
Yeah,
that's the Matt Damon. We keep bumping off the schedule. Tune in next week for Matt Damon.
I always think of after last episode's recording. Afterwards, I was like, oh, here's the 10 open loops of the conversations we had started and never finished.
Did we finish any? Did we finish any this time?
Oh, we finished a lot. This time was a lot of closure.
Okay,
the last one was really good and was also like super all over the place ideas wise, which is like fun and wild. I think I like both. When both things happen.
Me too.
So awesome, guys. Well, thank you for listening, and until next time,
keep on salivating, honeys. Ding.
I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Next week, we're hitting double digits, episode 10, which is actually the 11th episode because of episode 0. So that's something anyway, though. But we have a really good, if my memory serves me, we talked a bunch about memory, which, by the way, here's a fun bonus fun fact. There's a font, Ramin, called Sans Forgetica, and it's like a slightly distorted font to make it like slightly hard to read, which creates a bit of friction, and it actually improves retention.
I recommended that. I don't remember, but
no,
that's what this episode's all about.
We didn't even talk about it. That's just a bonus memory thing that sprang into my mind, and I didn't want to lose it forever. So we talk all about. So we took the episode you just heard, listening to us telling our autobiographical, our origin stories in comedy and all that, and then we talk next week all about why the brain selects certain memories over others when we're putting together our autobiographical narrative. And because you guys, I'm sure, are still salivating for more, what do they get if they head over to Patreon, Ramin?
You sign up now on Patreon for the low price of just $5 or more. Try to do more. But yeah, just for the low price of $5, you could be getting access to our other podcast called Mind Under Art, where you get to recommend art pieces that I've made, and Shane gets to ask me about it, and we both kind of talk about it, what it means to us, what I was thinking when I made it, what it means to the president. We also have an extra Mind Under Matter episode every month, and you get access to our community, our Discord, suggestions for episodes, questions answered, discounts. Your neurochemistry will be balanced as opposed to the complete mess that it is right now. So just kick us over a few clams, your problems will be solved, and you'll help support a show which has no advertising or sponsors. We are a pure Greenpeace, environmentally fair trade, good boy podcast, and you would be giving, sometimes it's like, well, should I be giving my money to this cause? This is a cause you got to give it to, so hand it over and you're going to get a lot of bonus stuff that you're going to love.
If you like what you heard or saw and want more of it, there's a great way to support us and get tons more stuff. So thank you guys. Thanks for writing such lovely reviews and everything on iTunes and Stitcher. Those make a huge difference. That's how the algorithms know if you're listening to subscribe to several different podcasts and review this show, other people that listen to those same podcasts you do will be recommended this show, and the people that will enjoy this show will be reached. There's a lot more of us out there like having these types of conversations, so that's a way of helping find the others. See you next week.
Bye.